Welcome, my friends. I am so glad you are here with me today. I want you to imagine something. You are standing beside a wide, golden river. The air is still. The soil is soft under your feet. In the distance, thin smoke rises from a small village. Farmers are watching the water. They know this river. It feeds their fields. It gives them life. But they also know it can rise without warning and take everything away. This river is the Yellow River. And the story we are going to walk through today began right here beside water, beside danger, beside the decision to survive together. Today, we are going to travel through one of the longest stories in human history. Not because it is perfect, not because it is simple, but because it is extraordinary. Kingdoms will rise and fall. Emperors will come and go. The land will be conquered, divided, and rebuilt again and again. And through all of it, something will keep moving forward. Something that refuses to disappear. What is it? That is the question we are going to answer together. Before there were emperors, there was a river. Before there were palaces, there were farmers. Before there were printed books, there were marks carved into bone. This is the story of China, the civilization that never disappeared. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The River and the Farmers. Thousands of years ago, long before anyone used the word China, families lived beside rivers. Imagine one of those families. A mother and father. Children. A small field of grain. A house made of earth and wood. Every morning, they walk to the river to carry water. Every evening, they watch the sky and hope for rain, but not too much rain. The Yellow River was powerful. It carried soft, golden soil. We call this kind of soil silt. When the river flooded gently, it left this silt behind, and the fields became rich. Farmers could grow food. Villages could survive. But the Yellow River was also dangerous. Sometimes the floods were too strong. The water rose fast. It covered homes. It destroyed crops. It drowned animals and people. The Chinese people gave it a name that tells you everything: China's sorrow. Now, here is something important. One family alone could not survive a flood like that. They needed neighbors. They needed to organize, to plan, to share work, to remember which seasons brought danger and which brought food. This is how communities began. Not with kings giving orders, not with armies marching, with ordinary people standing beside a dangerous river, choosing to face it together. And the Yellow River was not the only place. Far to the south, the Yangtze River fed warmer, wetter land where rice grew well. Along other rivers, other coastlines, other valleys, different communities developed their own ways of living. Early China was not one single culture. It was a mosaic. And that is a useful word for you. A mosaic means many small, different pieces forming one larger picture. Dozens of regional cultures lived across this vast land. They did not speak the same language. They did not follow the same customs. But slowly, through trade, through contact, through shared survival, connections grew. A civilization was forming, not because someone planned it, because the river demanded it. The river gave life. The river brought danger. And the people who lived beside it had to remember or lose everything. But if a river can begin a civilization, what can help it remember? The answer was not a palace. It was not a king. It was a mark, carved into bone. Chapter 2. The Bone and the Question. Around 3,000 years ago, during a time we call the Shang Dynasty, something remarkable happened. Picture a man kneeling in a dark room. Firelight moves across his face. In his hands, he holds a flat piece of animal bone, or maybe a turtle shell. He is not a soldier. He is not a farmer. He is a diviner, a person whose job is to ask questions of the spirit world. He takes a sharp tool and carefully carves marks into the bone. Each mark is a word. Each word is a question. Will it rain this season? Will the harvest be enough? Will we win the coming battle? Is our ancestor at peace? Now listen to this word carefully. Ancestor. An ancestor is a family member from the past. A grandfather. A great-grandmother. Someone who lived before you. The Shang people believed their ancestors could still hear them. They believed the past was not gone. It was listening. After carving the question, the diviner held the bone over fire. The heat made the bone crack, and the shape of the crack, that was the answer. This may sound strange to us today, but think about what was really happening. Someone was afraid. Afraid of hunger, afraid of losing a battle, afraid of what the future might bring. And they took that fear and carved it into something real, something lasting. These objects are called oracle bones. An oracle is a source of guidance or answers. And an inscription, listen to this word. An inscription is writing carved into a hard surface. The Shang dynasty eventually fell. Its kings lost power. Its cities went quiet. But the bones remained, buried in the earth for thousands of years. When they were finally discovered in modern times, the marks were still there, still readable. The writing outlasted the kingdom that made it. And Chinese writing kept going. It changed shape over the centuries. It moved from bone to bronze, from bronze to bamboo, from bamboo to silk, from silk to paper. But the tradition of writing, of recording, of remembering, never fully stopped. The river remembers. And now, writing remembers too. But writing created something else, something powerful and dangerous. It created the desire to control. If you could write laws, you could rule people. If you could control writing, you could control memory itself. So, what happened when one man tried to control everything? Chapter 3. The Emperor and the Seal. For centuries, the land was divided. Many states fought for power. We call this violent period the Warring States, and the name tells you exactly what it was. War after war after war, for more than 200 years. There was an old idea in Chinese political thinking called the mandate of heaven. A mandate means an official right or permission. The idea was this: a ruler has the right to govern only as long as he governs well. If there is famine, if there is suffering, if the ruler fails, he has lost the mandate, and someone else may take his place. This meant power was never permanent. A dynasty, and that is a very important word. A dynasty is a family that rules for many generations. Dynasties could rise, and dynasties could fall. In 221 BCE, one ruler ended the wars. His name was Qin Shi Huang. Picture a man pressing an imperial seal down into red ink. That seal stamp meant one thing: all the land, all the people, all the laws now answered to one ruler. He called himself the first emperor. An emperor is a ruler of a vast territory, an empire. He standardized writing across the land. He ordered roads to be built. He began connecting walls along the northern frontier. But his rule was harsh. People suffered. Workers died building his projects. Punishments were severe. And when the emperor himself died, his dynasty collapsed. It lasted only about 15 years. Now, here is the question that matters. If the first empire collapsed so quickly, why did its ideas survive for 2,000 years? Because what came next learned from the failure. The Han dynasty rose after the Qin. The Han rulers studied what the Qin had done right and what the Qin had done wrong. They kept the roads. They kept the unified writing. They kept the system of government officials. But they softened what was cruel. They built schools. They opened trade routes, paths that later became known as the Silk Road, connecting China to Central Asia, Persia, and beyond. The Han dynasty lasted more than 400 years. It became so important to Chinese identity that the largest ethnic group in China today still carries its name, the Han people. The empire broke. But it returned, changed, improved, and carrying the memory of what came before. Dynasties fell, but civilization continued. And now, something new was about to carry that memory even further, not swords, not armies, but something quieter. Books, exams, and a student sitting alone by lamplight. Chapter 4. The Student and the Exam. Let me show you a different kind of power. Picture a young man sitting at a wooden desk. It is late at night. A small oil lamp flickers beside him. His brush moves slowly across paper, forming characters, the same characters that began as marks on bone, now refined, elegant, and precise. He is studying. Tomorrow, he will take an examination. If he passes, he can become a government official. If he fails, he returns home with nothing. This was the civil service examination system. And during periods like the Song dynasty, it became one of the most important institutions in Chinese life. A scholar, a person who studies deeply, could rise to power not through family wealth or military force, but through knowledge and a written test. A printed page, an exam paper, a brush forming a character by lamplight. These were tools of memory and tools of power. The Tang dynasty, beginning in 618 CE, is remembered as one of China's golden ages. Its capital, Chang'an, was one of the largest cities in the world, open to traders, travelers, and ideas from Persia, India, and Central Asia. During the Song dynasty, printing spread widely. Books became cheaper. More people could read. But now, let us be honest about something. China's story is not one smooth line. In 1271, the Mongol Empire established the Yuan dynasty. For the first time in centuries, the rulers were Mongols, people from the northern steppe who had conquered a vast territory. They brought their own customs, their own language, their own way of governing. Later, in 1644, the Manchus from the northeast established the Qing dynasty. Do not think of these moments as simple interruptions. The rulers changed. The borders changed. The language of the court changed. These were real, deep changes. But writing continued. Cities continued. Trade continued. Institutions adapted. The civilization was not the same, but it was still recognizable. Although rulers changed, the tradition of learning and recording did not vanish. The empire changed hands, but the civilization kept finding ways to continue. China was never one simple thing. It was always becoming itself again. For centuries, this pattern held. But then the old imperial world met a modern age it could not control. And a much harder question arrived. Can memory survive when the old world breaks completely? Chapter 5. The Broken Map and the Modern City. In the 1800s, pressure came from outside. European powers, armed with industrial weapons and modern ships, demanded trade on their own terms. In the 1840s, Britain fought the Opium Wars, to force open Chinese ports. China lost. It was forced to sign treaties. A treaty is a formal agreement between countries But these treaties were not between equals. They were imposed by force. Inside the empire, there were also rebellions, famines, and growing anger. The old systems were weakening. In 1911, a revolution ended more than 2,000 years of imperial rule. The last emperor, a child, gave up the throne. The empire was gone. Now, stop and think about that. For over 2,000 years, emperors had been at the center of political life. And then, no more emperors, no more mandate of heaven, no more dynasties. If the empire ends, does the civilization end? China entered decades of war and division. Japan invaded in the 1930s. Millions suffered. In 1949, the People's Republic of China was established under Mao Zedong. A revolution, and that is an important word. A revolution is a major change in power or society. The country was reorganized from the ground up. Then came one of the most painful chapters. During the Cultural Revolution, beginning in 1966, many older traditions were attacked. Books were destroyed. Temples were damaged. Scholars were punished. Families were torn apart. Memory itself was under assault. If memory is attacked, does it disappear completely? No, not completely. And here is why. Memory is difficult to destroy because it lives in so many places. It lives in families, in the stories a grandmother tells. It lives in language, in the words people use without thinking about where they came from. It lives in habits. And it lives in the shape of a written character that a child learns in school today, the same basic shape that someone carved into bone 3,000 years ago. Picture that. A child in a modern classroom, holding a pencil, carefully writing a character. She does not know that this character's earliest ancestor was scratched into a turtle shell by a man who was afraid of the future. But the line connects them. Across 3,000 years, the line connects them. After 1978, a change made to improve a system opened a new direction. Cities grew. Technology advanced. Modern skylines rose beside ancient walls. Today, the Chinese character still appears on every sign, every screen, every page. The empire ended. But the civilization continued in new forms, carrying old memory forward. The river remembers, even after the flood. Final reflection. So what makes a civilization continue? Not one emperor, not one dynasty, not one perfect, unbroken line. People, ordinary people, a farmer watching the river, a diviner carving a question, an official pressing a seal, a student studying by lamplight, a child learning to write. China did not survive because its history was peaceful. It was not peaceful. It was full of war, conquest, division, and suffering. It did not survive because it never changed. It changed enormously. And it is still changing today. It survived because, again and again, people found ways to carry memory forward. Through writing, through books, through exams and schools and cities. Through families who passed down stories even when the world told them to forget. Rivers change course. They flood. They carve new paths through old land. But the water keeps moving. China was never one simple thing. It was always becoming itself again. And that not the size of its armies, not the height of its walls, that is why the civilization never disappeared.